trees.
Welcome back to the channel, and in the last video you see me take this thing on basically its first drive, cruising around the shop, adjusting some things in the Holly, trying to figure out some things with it, trying to learn. Never messed with that before, so got here a little bit ago today and have already been kind of plugging away on a couple more things. Got some more stickers on it. I got confirmation with Matt, the guy who runs Rocky Mountain Race Week, and I asked him if he minded if I joined it Bandimere. So that is tomorrow, and it's actually only like a 2.5 hour drive from us instead of like the 6 hour drive. Obviously the whole plan was to make race week, which was going to be 7 days of driving and 5 days at the track. Technically now we will only have 3 days at the track, so we've missed 2 of the days. We will start off here in Colorado. From there, we will go to Pueblo Motorsports Park, and then after that, we will go where we should have started off, which is in Great Bend, Kansas. It's looking pretty good. Buttoned up a few more things on it today. We got the windshield wipers all hooked up, so Sean stopped by a little bit ago, did that. We have the seats in here. I have the harnesses, so we got seats and harnesses. So we got the harnesses, 4-point harnesses. We got the passenger seat in it. We got a passenger seat belt. We mounted the Terminator X screen right here. And then this right here is actually my headlight switch. So on the left we have low, and on the right we have high. Headlights, taillights, blinkers, all that stuff work great. Right now we do have a couple concerning things though that I would like to address before we get started on this journey. So one of the first things is, if looking underneath the car, the oil pan is super low to the ground. It looks pretty sketchy. If there was an apple in the middle of the road and I hit it with that center of the oil pan, we would hit the oil pan. And I don't want to be running over apples with my oil pan. So I would like to raise the front of it a little bit. So you can see I like the fitment. That looks pretty good. So if we raise the front and lower the rear a little bit, because I would like it to squat just a little bit. The other thing is I got a GM, it's like a Duramax map sensor. So it's a 3.3 bar map sensor. It's the only like 3 bar map sensor that plugs into the stock truck intake manifold and that has the correct wiring. Can't really find any information as far as scaling it correctly, and I feel like it's acting kind of finicky with the Holly because I don't have the right correction or the right scale. So ordered one from O'Reilly's and it should be there at 5:30. It's 5:20 right now. So I think the plan with this thing is to grab that sensor, start scaling some tables, start messing with a couple things with it, start driving this thing. I need to put some miles on it, need to throw it up on the lift, and then we also need to decide if we're going to do the trailer for the trailer hitch. So as of right now, I think we could probably get by without it because I'm not swapping wheels and tires back and forth, but it would be cool to have the trailer. I just honestly think it looks so cool to have that trailer behind it, towing it on race week, but we'll figure it out. So a couple more things to do, but I hope you guys are stoked about this project. Seems like a lot of you guys liked the first drive of this thing, and I think it's okay after we hit the 30 pounds of boost, which was a complete accident, but it's working. Just took it for another drive. A little bit of bad news is the transmission cooler. Obviously I knew it was going to be kind of small. Just this was technically a power steering cooler that we had laying around. The packaging with the other cooler that I have, it's so big, it was kind of hard to figure out a place to put it in here without just like sticking it directly to the intercooler. It's definitely causing a problem because the transmission cooler, just driving it a couple miles, not even doing anything crazy, got up to 207 degrees. I slowly climbed, never came down. So I guess need to figure out what to do with the tranny cooler, or get another one. So this is a tranny cooler right here that I have. You can see it's pretty thick, and that is kind of our issue, is it's just kind of big. But honestly, we might just end up having to put this thing on here just in order to get the transmission temperatures in check, especially if we're going to be towing a trailer with this thing. There's no way that we could survive with that little tranny cooler. I pretty much did it for testing, and then the good thing is I got that new harness for the transmission because it actually has a temp sensor in it, whereas the old harness did not have a tranny temp sensor in it. So at least we were able to monitor that and catch it before it caused any too big of an issue. I have to load this thing on the lift again, double check some things, mess with some tie rod end things, and go from there. boys. So, been having some issues with this tranny cooler, just trying to get it in. I thought it was only gonna take me like 30 minutes to mount it and get it like plumbed and stuff. It's 9:30 at night, by the way, the night before that I'm technically supposed to be going, and I haven't even had a chance to like go and get this thing tuned in properly because the transmission was getting hot. Jamie picked up that sensor for me, so now I have the new sensor. This is OEM sensor instead of all them like aftermarket ones. I feel like all the aftermarket reproduction sensors or whatever, they're just not the quality of OEM, and I was having some finicky scaling issues. So we're gonna get that in and hopefully get this thing all dialed in. Probably drive it around a little bit tonight, possibly drive it home for the night, and then figure out what we're doing, if I'm taking this thing tomorrow up to the track or not. So wish me luck. So in the front of a Foxbody, there's not a lot of room. So right here we have the other tranny cooler, which would technically be a power steering cooler. Doesn't really work that well. We got the big tranny cooler now. We have the oil cooler right here, the intercooler, and the radiator. This is kind of what I worked out right here so far, just to get it kind of in the zone. Get in the zone. Pretty stoked on that. I could honestly raise it up a little bit more, about another ½ an inch. So I'm probably gonna do that. And then with these lines right here, they're already sideways, and I actually left them long because I kind of assumed that we were gonna have to swap the tranny cooler anyhow. Should have a tranny cooler. Hopefully it gets enough airflow. I'm gonna cut a little bit more out of this bumper right here, so get a little bit more direct airflow through the front of the bumper, and we should be good to go. It's one of the things you get when you do last minute things. I don't know, this wouldn't be that big of a deal if we were like gonna take it to the local track, but to try and drive it like another 1,000 miles or so over the next like day or two in 100-degree weather, potentially towing a trailer, could cause some issues. All right, so this is the solution that I came up with. Sideways, lines out the side, cut them to length, zip tied some things up. And then I was actually on the other side of the shop looking for a fan for the tranny cooler. I was like, oh, maybe, you know, put a fan on this thing just in case it gets hot. And I actually found this exhaust right here. So this is an exhaust, I think it's a 4-inch from a Supra, and this back section right here is actually titanium. So it's pretty lightweight, and it has a 4-inch slip. So it slips over 4-inch outer diameter or whatever tubing, so it literally goes right on here. This thing is ridiculously loud. I don't know if it really translates in the video what it actually sounds like. All it is just freaking loud, but with that thing like that, it's way quieter. I'm gonna start it up for you guys real quick. Need some throttle. We haven't put the new map sensor in yet. We should quit messing around and just do it. I like it. All right, boys, so I decided to drive this thing home tonight. So we got extra fuel because we're pretty much on empty. That's E85, but that's better than nothing. So I'm gonna cruise this thing. Cruise it back to my house. You can see we have a little bit of a visual impairment right there, but I'm just curious to see how this thing does.
A few inches later.
So, crazy thing. I kind of assumed that this thing was going to run out of fuel, and here we are on the side of the highway. Literally the only stoplight, and the only light from here to there, and it literally started smoking out the exhaust, or like throwing like a lean flame or something out of it. I don't even know what I'm saying, but 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm on the side of the road, filling up with the 85. I wasn't planning on putting E in this thing, but maybe we will, maybe we won't. But this is all I had at the shop.
The following day.
True North, a plant-based energy drink with 0 speed.
Filling her up. So last night we put a little bit of E85 in it because it ran out. So putting a little bit of, I guess, normal fuel in it today to kind of finish cruising it around. We are going to drive to the shop, load this thing up, and then head up to Bandimere. 10 gallons. I'm curious how big the fuel tank in here is, and it doesn't seem like it lasts that long. after a couple pulls, kind of rolling into it on the street, just gentle throttle, like 20-30%. The TPS is the purple line, or the pinkish line right there, so that's throttle percentage. And then this is the target air fuel ratio, the green, and then that is the actual air fuel ratio. And then this line up here on the top is actually the boost pressure. So you can't really see the boost pressure because it's not scaled correctly, because it's scaled for, I don't even know what it's scaled for. What ends up happening as soon as I roll into it, over here, you can see we're at 5 pounds, making 5 pounds of boost, 13.4 air fuel, which is kind of lean. And then as soon as you get to about 6 pounds of boost, it just gets a little bit leaner, like 14, a little bit less than that. So, because right here, we're still at 4 pounds, 4.6 pounds, and the longer we go, the leaner it gets. So it's not even like I'm gaining a lot of boost pressure. It's like we're going from like 4 to 4.6 to 5.6, and it goes pretty lean in that. And everything that I've done on the fuel table, I've added like 20%, 30% to it in one little spot. And it should just go like super fat right there, super rich, I mean, and just like pop and sputter and not even work with how much fuel it is right there, and it's still running away. One of the things I was just talking to James, it seems like it has a 6 pound spring in it now. I changed the wastegate spring last night before I drove it home, filled it up with fuel right before I came out here. And then I was just kind of slowly rolling into it and watching everything on the way out here to make sure. So we could do a pull on 6 pounds, like I'd be cool with it. And then we'll just turn up the boost later this week as we mess with it. I just want to be able to do a full, like wide open throttle pull and not have to do like 10% throttle and have it at 4 pounds or whatever. So with the fuel system, we had it set at 60 pounds, and in the Holly, you adjust it. So like right here, you would say fuel injectors are scaled for 43 pounds, which is 3 bar. We are running them at 60 pounds, and it'll change it from like a 95 an hour injector to like a 105 hour, like pound an hour injector, which is like the fuel flow rate. What it could be doing is just not wanting to keep up at that higher pressure, especially since it's just a single in-tank pump. It's just in there. There's no surge tank. There's no nothing else like that. And it's also trying to fill ADAN lines feeding it, and the orifice tube like going into the tank isn't like the biggest. So it's kind of a small orifice tube filling a huge fuel line going all the way to the fuel rail. So it's a lot of fuel going through there and a lot of PSI that it's trying to make up for, as well as volume. So could potentially be an issue with that. I'm just gonna try and dial that in. I'm gonna go drive it again now that we turned the fuel pressure down, so that way it doesn't have to work as hard to make 66 pounds. Technically right now we'll only make 50 pounds of fuel pressure when it's at 6 pounds of boost. And I'm gonna go do a pull real quick and see if that changes anything. So out doing basically some fuel runs. Really, we're only at, look at this freaking mosquito. Right here is the fuel table. These green numbers are like under 10%. The light blue ones are over 10%. The dark blue ones are 20%. And then the pink ones are 50%. So right there, it wants to add 50% more fuel. And I've already applied a lot of fuel to it. So I'm basically letting the auto tune feature of the Holly do it. And you can see right here already, that's it. Everywhere else on the VE table, you know, up in this range is like around like 90 to 100 is what it kind of should be, maybe a little bit over that. But it's at 195 VE, 179, 180, and it still wants to add 50% more to that, which is ridiculous. So there's for sure a fuel issue, a fuel pressure issue, whether it's dropping or whatever it's doing. It's not having a good time, and it's not maintaining it, even at 6 pounds of boost. So that's with dropping the fuel pressure and doing everything else. I don't know, the first pull I went and did, it was fine. And then after I did it again and again, it got really mad and was upset. fuel pressure essentially dropping to down below 20 PSI of fuel pressure. I really wish I had a fuel pressure regulator on this, or a fuel pressure thing. With the intake hanger, it was kind of a small orifice coming out of it, going into an 8N line, feeding basically this big engine. So I think at this point it needs basically a surge tank, I think is what it needs. I have a full setup in my Datsun that is pretty serious and would actually work really well on here, because we could just run the 8N from this thing up to that, and then the return into that, and then that into the tank, and then that technically has 2 pumps in it. We'd probably only need 1, which I could do, and it wouldn't take that long to swap everything over, but it's kind of a bummer. I wish it, for only 6 pounds of boost, I wish it was working a little better. Right now is the day of race week at Bandamere, which is 2.5 hours away, and it's almost 1 o'clock, so it would take me, we'd be there basically after they were already running in the lanes, which we could technically do, but I don't know if they'd let me tech in. I'd have to maybe call and talk to them. So I don't know, it's just crazy, all the little like last minute issues that I'm having with this thing. So now that we know that this thing is dropping fuel pressure, we need to figure out why. So there's a couple things that could be happening. Either it's not getting enough amperage or enough voltage going through the fuel pump relay, but the relay that I have is set up, the battery is right here in the trunk, fuel pump relay is right here, and it goes through this factory wiring, basically just that factory wiring loom and that connector, just so it would pass through the factory grommet. So there's an option that maybe that wiring has some resistance issues or something like that. It is older. Obviously it's like 30-some-year-old wiring at this point, but the fuel pump wiring going to it looked like it was at least 12 gauge. The wiring going to this thing is probably about 14 gauge or something like that actually goes in the tank. Completely full of fuel because I just filled it up. We need to see if there's a restriction in it anywhere. There's no bends or kinks or anything like that in the lines. The other thing is potentially the fuel filter. I cleaned out the tank, but I mean, honestly, there could be some other stuff in there. The one thing that I did notice was the little orifice out of the little hanger was a little bit smaller. Potentially there's an issue with that, but as of right now, I'm just gonna start kind of diving into this fuel system. Obviously the whole goal of this thing was to try to get this thing done for Rocky Mountain Race Week. We've already missed the first 2 days and we're getting ready to miss the 3rd day. So at this point, there's only 2 days left, and the last day is the furthest drive there and the furthest drive back. I've spread myself thin. I've spread, my family, everybody who's on the team over here doing this last minute build. I wish we would just, did this like last month. Like if the whole month of May was just this was the whole focus, was building this thing for race week, then we would have like the whole month of June to like test it, figure things out, diagnose things, order parts, redo things. There's only one way that we would have been able to make this event, and that's if everything would have went to plan. But there's like 100 different things that could go wrong that would cause us to not make this event. Obviously, losing fuel pressure is one of them. I don't know if I'm gonna try to figure it out and get up there today. It's already like 1:30. Basically, I'd have to make a pass before 10 when they shut down the lanes. But at this point, I could make it to the Pueblo race, maybe make a pass there and just call it that. And then just basically just try to get this thing dialed in for the next race week. But in the meantime, I could like really dial in this chassis, dial in the engine, tranny setup. We can make a bunch of power. We could break things. We could fix things. Whereas right now, like I was having an issue just on the way here after I swapped the tranny cooler. It was good, and then after I just did a bunch of back-to-back pulls, tranny got up to like 217 degrees. So that's another issue that we could be in the middle of Kansas somewhere and the transmission's overheating, and it's because it's something that I've never been able to test. Now I'm on the side of the road, so much things that could and did go wrong, and we worked through so many freaking issues. Now we're dealing with one more. I'm gonna mess with this fuel filter and see if we find anything in that, and then we'll move on to the back. Pulling off the fuel filter, just gonna double check some stuff in there. Make sure there's no major restrictions or anything like that in there. I mean, the filter looks clean on the outside. Doesn't look like there's anything like that much of a restriction, so should be good as far as the fuel filter goes. I decided to go ahead and cut a hole in the back just to make this easier in order to get it out. That other fuel pump just wasn't really flowing a whole lot, so I'm just gonna loosen these guys. Probably just go ahead, swap out the pump real quick with that Deechworks one if it'll fit, using the Deechworks line fitting wrenches and a crescent wrench on the top. Give this guy the tap. Tap it open. so fuel pump is out. Drain a little bit of this fuel. It's kind of coming out of there. I mean, unless there's something like a split in the line or something right here, or something different. Like, I don't know what would have happened to cause that, you know? DHWorks 400 fuel pump is on there. Don't really have that much room. Basically only as much as this is wide. So I don't know if this wire, I basically used wire ties instead of a hose clamp, because the hose clamp was just too big. So I'm gonna see if I can get this thing in here. If I can't, I'm actually gonna cut some grooves in this bracket right here, so that wire just lays down in there, and essentially then we should be able to get it to go in, I hope. But hopefully it'll go like this, go in like this on the first try. New fuel pump is in, primed it, there is no leaks, so we're gonna go drive this thing and see what it does now that it has a new fuel pump. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, boys, we almost made it. Went and drove the car. Carson, say hi. Say how you doing. Carson's been playing around the shop for a little while, helping me clean it up, riding her little Strider bike in here, and she's been doing a great job. We almost made it. We're so freaking close to getting this thing like super dialed. If it wasn't for the fuel pressure issue. Oh, smack it. Smack it. Thank you. Did you get it?
It's still on your head.
Oh, get it. Whack it. Smack it harder. Smack it hard.
Dad.
Hard.
Dad, it's already dead, but it's still in your hair.
Oh. Mistakes were made. I think the biggest thing was time. Not having enough time to shake down the car. We started this build about 3 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. When I say started it, I mean we pulled in the van and we pulled in the Mustang, but we didn't have any parts. So we didn't have an ECU, we didn't have injectors, we didn't have like suspension stuff, we didn't have a radiator, we didn't have intercooler, we didn't have seats, we didn't have a roll cage, we didn't have the full axle set up. We literally didn't have anything. We had like a rolling shell that was 100% stock, interior, brakes, suspension, everything. And we had a bone stock 4.8 and a 480E out of a 200 and some thousand mile van that we had to pull it out of. So close, but so far at the same time. The fact that we were able to pull this thing off with a full TIG welded chromoly cage, if everything would have went good today with it, we would have been able to make it to Bandamere. I wanted to do race week. I wanted to do the whole thing. I could have probably went to the house and stole the fuel pump out of my Civic. There's 100 things that could go wrong that would make us not make this work. And there was only one thing that could go right, which is that everything had to go right in order for this for us to pull this off. Oh, that's a beautiful picture. She's been rolling around in the dirt and playing with her bicycle and making jumps and stuff here. She took her bike apart earlier. She took the wheel and tire off it and put it back on, right? She's almost 5. Another thing that this has been you know, a huge deal on is the family, obviously not being able to see the kids for pretty much 2 weeks because we've been here like all day and most of the night, going home, sleep a couple hours and coming back. Sean actually, he was not going to make it on the trip. Initially his plan was to make it on the trip, but his wife is actually basically due July 10th for their baby. Sean actually, he took off a couple days, this past couple days, just to be home with her, you know, because I was planning on leaving and going with Charles on the event. So Charles was just gonna ride with me. So Sean's gonna be off work for a couple days, kind of getting some stuff settled in at his house, taking care of some things before they have the baby, and then probably after they have the baby, he might be gone for like a week or two. I think I'll probably drive this to the track tomorrow just to go hang out with everybody, you know, I guess kind of show off the car to the people that have kind of been wondering. Maybe we'll see if we could do a pass. Technically, I think it would do a pass because it would do one pull, and then after that, the next pull it would go lean. So I really think it's not an issue with the fuel pumps. It's not an issue with the hanger or anything like that. I think it just came down to the fact that like the Foxbody fuel tank, there's like this weird little dish in there, and I feel like it was sucking it dry. Doing something, I don't know what it was doing. I think the baffling in the tanks isn't really that good. It seems like a lot of people either put like a sump with like AN fittings on the back of the tank, or they put just like a surge tank, or they just run a full fuel cell. And I just wanted to get away with the stock tank. So I've already been talking to Diagnostics, and they have a surge tank that we're gonna get set up for this thing. And once it has a surge tank, we should be solid. You know, it's just crazy that it was going that lean on only 6 pounds of boost. The transmission was kind of doing some weird shifting and stuff there towards the end too. So that's like another concern that I would have for driving this thing like 1,500 miles. But huge shout out to all the sponsors and the companies that were working with me. Holly for sending out everything so quick. Diagnostics for basically, I had the Diagnostics stuff in 3 days from when I first talked to them. And I love all the Diagnostics, all the fittings, the lines, the injectors. They've been awesome in all of my builds. The Holly, now that I have gotten used to it, like going through the tables and learning a lot of stuff, it's actually a really user-friendly interface. You just have to read and do a little bit of research. So it's not one of those things where you're gonna pick it up in an hour, but like after, you know, probably 8 hours of messing with the program and doing all that other stuff, you know, I think that somebody would have a pretty good handle on how to kind of adjust stuff and play with it themselves. BC Racing for sending out the coilovers, and Garrett for sending out their new 45mm wastegate, which is really cool, as well as that insane sounding Garrett G42 turbo that just makes, it just feels like it's ready to rip. For some reason earlier, it was like, it's on a 6-pound wastegate spring, but it made like 20 pounds for one pull. I don't know why. For one pull, and then all the other pulls after that, it was 6 pounds again. For one pull, it hit 20 pounds, and I think the fueling was okay, and it just felt like we were going to the moon. Like, it was freaking wild. But yeah, I know this video has been a little lengthy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed those pulls on the street. Maybe we'll see if we can get away with taking this thing to the track tomorrow. I'd like to just get it dialed in before this Friday, and possibly just take it this Friday night to the drags. And then the plan is just to kind of finish, like continue dialing in this chassis, take this thing to races, and do a bunch of stuff throughout the summer now that it's already done. So appreciate you guys for watching the videos and all the support on the latest video of basically me just kind of realized that it probably wasn't gonna work, but it's close, so close. So appreciate you guys' support. Appreciate if you guys would like this video, continue watching some of the videos. Honestly, after we take this thing to the track, I'm probably gonna end up taking like a week or two off just to get the shop completely set up. I mean, as of right now, there's still totes on the other side. There's parts in cars outside. None of these cabinets right here on this side have anything in them. Like, as we were working on stuff, like the guys were on that side of the shop, like working on the car, and I was over here like unloading totes, putting them in the shelves, you know, of like, so that way we knew where all the parts and stuff were. That was probably the biggest mistake, was just not being ready for this build. So I'm glad we failed fast. Yes, baby.
How about the old parts go here, and then you can put on the different cars that are broken?
Oh, that's a good idea. She's been coming up with great ideas, really. She told me that humans need to work with people because they can't work by themselves. I was like, yeah, you're right. We failed quick, and the only thing we can do is use this as a lesson for the next time, hopefully, where this doesn't happen again. But see you guys later.